The woman they tried to erase, David Blackwood, had never imagined he would be hosting a competition to find his daughter a new mother. The idea came from his therapist, an unconventional approach to help Emma, his 7-year-old, heal from losing her mother in a car accident the previous year. The plan was simple. Select 5 highly accomplished women from high society. Let Emma live with them for a month and let her choose the one she felt most connected to. On paper, the candidates were perfect. A lawyer, a doctor, a businesswoman, a renowned socialite, and an architect. All white, all wealthy, all polished to perfection. David thought he was giving his daughter the best possible choices, but from the first day, something went wrong. The 5 women didn't just compete for David's attention. They united in a quiet, calculated cruelty against someone who wasn't even part of the contest. Kesha Williams, the mansion's cleaning lady. Kesha was 28, with a degree in education she couldn't use because she was supporting her sick mother. She had been working at the Blackwood estate for only 3 months. But in that time she had done something none of the candidates had managed. She made Emma smile again. That alone made her a threat. That woman shouldn't even be in the same room as us. Victoria Ashworth, the oil heiress, whispered one afternoon as Kesha bent silently to clean the shards of an expensive crystal glass. Accidentally knocked over by the socialites during lunch. It was always like that. Cruel comments delivered when they thought no one important was listening. That girl needs to learn about social hierarchy early on. Priscilla Montgomery, the lawyer, told the others over dinner. She must understand who the appropriate people are for her class. What none of them realized was that David was listening. After noticing Emma had gone from laughing with Kesha to waking from nightmares again, David had installed hidden microphones and checked the security cameras regularly. And what he saw made his blood run cold. His little girl hiding behind his office door, asking in a trembling voice, "Daddy, why are those women being mean to Kesha?" Kesha never defended herself in front of them. She bowed her head, smiled faintly, and continued her work. But inside her eyes burned with a quiet determination forged by a lifetime of facing prejudice. This wasn't submission. This was strategy. She knew the most devastating revenge came to those patient enough to wait for the right moment. And that moment came sooner than anyone expected. 2 weeks later, one of the candidates, Isabella Richardson, daughter of a billionaire, made the mistake of humiliating Emma's friend Sophia in public. Sophia, who used a wheelchair, had been quietly celebrating Isabella's birthday with David and Emma at a small cafe when Isabella's father, Thomas Richardson, stormed in like a thundercloud in a $3,000 suit. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he snapped at his daughter. "Not with me. Not with these people." The contempt in his voice was sharp enough to slice through the air. Emma clung to David's hand, wide-eyed. But Isabella, to everyone's shock, stood her ground. "You haven't bothered anyone," she told David firmly. "You're the only people who remembered my birthday." Every phone in the cafe caught the moment. Within minutes, #PRINCESS Richardson SLUMING was trending. Within an hour, it had turned into #Richardson racist, and the internet was ripping apart the family's carefully curated public image. David didn't post a word. He didn't need to. The internet was doing his work for him. Back at the mansion, the marriage competition ended without ceremony. David walked into the living room where the 5 women sat, all of them frowning, all pretending innocence. "I've made my choice," he said simply. They all straightened. Victoria smirked, certain she had won. "I choose Kesha." The silence was deafening. "You can't be serious," Priscilla scoffed. David's voice didn't rise. "She's the only one here who treated my daughter with kindness, dignity, and love without knowing she was being tested. The rest of you failed." And with that, the competition and the women's carefully polished reputations were over. For Kesha, it wasn't about winning a millionaire's affection. It was about proving something far greater, that dignity can't be bought, and true worth isn't defined by money, race, or social status. And for the 5 women who tried to erase her, the humiliation was just beginning. The woman they tried to erase, Part 2. The reckoning. The announcement had hung in the air like the toll of a funeral bell. I choose Kesha. Victoria Ashworth's lips curled, her voice dripping with disbelief. She's a maid, David. You can't possibly. David didn't even glance at her. I can, and I have. Kesha stood frozen, her cleaning cloth still in her hand. She hadn't dressed for an announcement. She hadn't even been invited to this gathering. But there she was, at the center of the room, in her plain uniform, while 5 women in designer dresses stared at her as though she had committed a crime simply by existing. Emma didn't hesitate. She ran to Kesha, wrapping her arms tightly around her waist. Does this mean you're staying forever? Kesha knelt down, her eyes shimmering. If you want me to. The sound that came from Victoria's throat was part laugh, part snarl. This is absurd. Do you realize how the press will react? David's expression hardened. Victoria, the only press I care about is the truth, and the truth is that every one of you revealed exactly who you are when you thought no one was watching. 1. Victoria Ashworth's fall. Victoria's undoing began that very evening. A leaked recording, courtesy of the microphones David had installed, surfaced online. In it, Victoria could be heard telling the others that children need to learn early who's worth their time, followed by a venomous laugh. Within hours, her family's PR team scrambled to contain the damage. But it was too late. The hashtag oil heiress from hell was already trending. The charity gala she had been set to host next month quietly dropped her from the program. For someone who measured her worth by her social standing, being uninvited was a deeper cut than any public insult. 2. Priscilla Montgomery's lesson. The proud attorney who had spoken so casually about appropriate people for Emma's social class faced an even harsher fate. One of her high-profile corporate clients, a tech company, issued a public statement ending their relationship, citing misalignment with company values. The legal world whispered. Deals dried up. Invitations vanished. When she called David, voice trembling, to clear up the misunderstanding, he answered calmly, There was no misunderstanding, Priscilla. You were very clear. 3. Dr. Eleanor Finch's regret. The doctor had kept her cruelty quieter than the others, but the microphones had captured her muttering about lowering standards for emotional comfort. It was enough for a group of medical students, many from minority backgrounds, to stage a protest outside her private practice. The sight of patients turning away at the door hit Eleanor harder than she expected. For the first time in years, she questioned not just her words, but the way she had lived her entire career. 4. Madeline Cross. The businesswoman Madeline thought she would escape unscathed. After all, she had kept her comments vague and never directly insulted Kesha to her face. But the internet unearthed an old interview in which she boasted about hiring the right kind of people for the right kind of company. Screenshots of her saying, "Our clients expect a certain image," went viral next to pictures of Kesha and Emma laughing together. Her company's stock dropped by 15% in 2 days. Investors began whispering about leadership change. 5. The architects. Silence of the 5, Laura Bennett had been the quietest. She had never led the cruelty, but she had stood by and let it happen. And when the recordings came out, her silence spoke louder than any insult. The architectural firm where she was a partner announced her voluntary departure within the week. She told herself she'd resign to avoid the chaos, but deep down she knew her passivity had cost her just as much as the others' active cruelty. Kesha's rise while the 5 women crumbled under the weight of their own reputations. Kesha's life transformed in ways she never imagined. David offered her not only the position of Emma's caretaker, but also a full scholarship to return to teaching, her original passion. "You have a gift," he told her. "Not just for children, but for people. You see them as they are, and you make them better." Kesha didn't see herself as a heroine. She saw herself as someone who had done what any decent person would have done: protect a child from cruelty. But when Emma held her hand that night, whispering, "You're my real family now," Kesha understood the depth of what had happened. The mansion felt different now, lighter, warmer, no more poisonous. Whispers in the hallways. No more shadow battles fought with smiles and daggers and words. And for the first time in months, Emma slept through the night. The downfall of the 5 women might have seemed complete from the outside: trending hashtags, corporate withdrawals, whispers in high society. But behind closed doors, their humiliation was festering into something darker. Victoria Ashworth was the first to speak it aloud during a private brunch at an exclusive Atlanta club. "They think they've destroyed U.S. They think we're just going to disappear." Priscilla Montgomery swirled her coffee, eyes hard. "David Blackwood made us a spectacle. We have 2 options: stay silent and let him win, or take back control of the narrative." Control. The narrative in their language meant attack. By the end of the brunch, the plan was in motion: a coordinated smear campaign aimed at destroying Kesha's